We know you are no heretic. This is the true face of heresy, one who would subvert our faith and incite rebellion against the High Council. This heretic, and those who follow him, must be silenced.
The task you must take is to show gamers what good writing really is in this dark age.
What would you have your do?
Halo 2 was a game so hyped it could never live up to its expectations. It is still a fantastic game and one of my favorite games of all time. For some people the game actually exceeded its expectations, and there are people who rank it as the best game ever made. It is well known by now that the game was very rushed and that Bungie went over one of the worst crunches in video game history. And that definitely shows in the campaign. The level design and the difficult balancing isn't as near as good as Halo Combatable. It's not bad by any means. The levels are just way more close quarters compared to CE. And the difficulty balancing yeah, that's just bad. There is one aspect of the game, however, that I absolutely love. The story. I'm absolutely amazed that Bungie managed to pull this off back in the day, considering the development hell the game went through. I will go as far as say that Halo 2 is the best sci-fi story that I have ever consumed. And I'm gonna tell you why.
The hopes of all the Covenant rest on your shoulders, Chieftain.
My faith is strong. I will not fail.
Let him be. The great journey waits for no one, brother. Not even you.
I will do this mainly talking about the foundation of a good story, the characters. What is a good character? Well, it needs of course to have interesting personality traits and a clear role through the whole part of the story the character participates in. But you also need a reason to care. I need a reason both to hate the bad guys, or maybe even understand them, and also a reason to care about the good guys. That is an area 343 have failed in a couple of times. I will begin to talk about the Covenant characters, and we start off with the highest echelon, the Prophets. These guys are so crucial to the story, and they give the Covenant a new face from the get-go. The Covenant aren't just these funny aliens that you kill that says sport word anymore. They are an advanced society under a dictatorship, controlled by a religious belief that the prophets know are based on lies. They give us a whole new picture of the Halo rings and the Flood as well, because the Covenant religion is literally the whole reason that the Forerunner history and Flood is brought back after the reproduction of the galaxy. So, they are crucial to the plot. Most of the personality though comes from the Prophet of Truth. The Prophet of Mercy and Prophet of Regret have their moments, but they are mainly just there to advance the plot, especially Regret. I think that Mercy is the one with the most personality when it comes to those two. He seems to be the oldest prophet and is emotional and thoughtful. The Prophet of Truth clearly doesn't like that. I think of the cutscene when they will send Arbiter to go after the sacred icon and Truth just interrupts Mercy and puts his arm in front of him. A clear move that indicates who is really in charge and that it's time for Mercy to be quiet. Regret seems a bit careless with some of his action, and he is important to the plot, mainly because his death is what really starts to shake up the Covenant. However, it's completely fine that Mercy and Regret aren't the characters with the most screen time and personality. They fill their purpose well, and Truth is a goddamn S-tier villain. His lines are so well written and the voice acting is god tier.
We are, all of us, gravely concerned. The release of the parasite was unexpected, unfortunate, but there is no need to panic. In truth, this is a time to rejoice. A moment that all the Covenant should savor. For the sacred icon has been found. With it, our path is clear, our entry into the divine beyond guaranteed. The great journey is nigh, and nothing, not even the flood, can stop it. Boo. Kill the demon!
He's a dictator drunk with power and is prepared to silence everyone that stands in his way. You truly hate that bastard, and that is what makes him so great as a villain. A manipulative genius. One cutscene that comes to mind thinking about what kind of piece of crap this guy is the scene when he betrays Mercy. He sees a chance to take all the power to himself and just leaves one of his closest companions to the infection form. How long could it have taken for Tartarus to kill that infection form? A couple of seconds, but Truth just left him to die. We can thank the prophets for the advanced civilization that we now know as the Covenant.
This armor suits you, but it cannot hide that mark.
Nothing ever will.
You are the Arbiter, the will of the prophets. But these are my elites. Their lives matter to me, yours does not.
That makes two of us.
This is one of my favorite video game characters of all time. Halo 2 starts off with an introduction where they are shifting between honoring soldiers in the UNSC and punishing Vadum, soon to be the Arbiter, for the Covenant's loss on Halo. There is a lot of backstory to this guy that makes his story arc even better, but I will try to contain this video only with what happens in Halo 2, but maybe that's something to discuss another day. Anyway, this cutscene was a great introduction to both new and old fans, because the Covenant hadn't really been established before this, but it was also a way of showing that our actions in Combat Evolved mattered. You feel a bit sorry for the Arbiter from the start, at least I did, because is it really fair to punish one guy so much for a failed military operation? No, of course it isn't, and that also shows the brutality of the Covenant. Though, despite the torture and all the hate he receives, it seems like the Arbiter are the one who hates himself the most. He truly believes that he has not just let down the whole Covenant, but the greater good. He gets a chance to be redeemed by becoming, surprise surprise, the Arbiter, which means basically that he will be taking on suicide missions. And he seems to think that's a generous offer. As you all know, we get to play as the Arbiter, and I think that's one of the smartest decisions from Bungie ever when it comes to creative writing. Let me explain. Master Chief is the silent protagonist, a character that doesn't say much and therefore lets you see the bigger picture of a conflict with several factions, from a badass super soldier perspective. At least that was the case back then. Master Chief has developed as a character over the years, but let's save that for another video. That's however where the Arbiter comes in, because he isn't the Master Chief. For the first time in Halo you could follow the character development of a protagonist. Arbiter tells the kind of story that some people criticize Master Chief for not telling in the OG trilogy. And if you ask me, Arbiter's story arc is absolutely amazing. We see how he, over the course of the game, gets the idea that there might be something going on that he doesn't really know about. Starting off with the mission with the heretic, and when he is about to consider the information that the heretic brings to him, the heretic starts to attack. The first time he really starts to understand that something is wrong is when he is betrayed by Tartarus, but he barely has time to process it all before Tartarus sends him down the pit. He wakes up with the Gravemind and the Master Chief who explains everything. Can we just take a moment to try and understand what the Arbiter has been going through? He has been tortured, being hated by a whole civilization, been unfairly punished, and for what? Lies. But even worse is that he now realizes all the innocent blood he has gotten on his hands. Just recently all those so-called heretics who just tried to spread the truth. Everything the Arbiter believed in and fought for has turned out to be a lie. Basically his whole life has been turned upside down. Everything his life was built on. Just lies to use him as a puppet. No wonder he needed to be the one to take out truth in Halo 3. I don't think a lot of people can relate to the exact same thing as the Arbiter has been through. But I do think that the premise of having your life turned upside down, or at least taking a big hit because something you truly believed turned out to be false, is something that people can relate to. And I think that is a big part of why he is such a beloved character. He also of course realizes how blind the rest of the Covenant are, and even tried to tell Tartarus the truth, but he refused to listen. Arbiter is in my opinion the first really good developed character in Halo. He gives the Covenant as a faction a whole new face and is also relatable in some aspects. He gives Halo 2 a completely new dimension of depth, and is one of the best science fiction characters in my opinion. He's probably the biggest single reason why Halo 2's story is so awesome. Tartarus and the Shipmaster are two important characters to the plot. I really like the Shipmaster. Even though he isn't the most important character, I think he does a good job representing the elites. And I also like how his relationship with the Arbiter develops during the game. It's really interesting. I have already shown the clip of the Shipmaster telling the Arbiter that his life doesn't matter to him. That of course makes for an interesting journey, since they end up as friends. I think the point when the Shipmaster is starting to gain respect for the Arbiter is when the Arbiter is willing to risk his life by cutting the cable to force out the heretic from his hiding spot. That's a kind of action where the Arbiter actually shows that he means what he said earlier, that he agrees that the other elite's lives are worth more than his own. The Shipmaster starts to question the prophets after the death of Regret when the brutes take over the role as honor guards, and therefore the elites threaten to resign. That's probably also a big point in the development of his relation to the Arbiter, because he doesn't really have too much faith anymore in those who tortured the Arbiter and put all of the blame on him. It feels like these characters really start to connect when they hunt for the sacred icon.
In the center of this zone is a sacred icon critical to the great journey. I must find it.
We shall cut into the heart of this infestation, retrieve the icon, and burn any flood that stand in our way. The parasite is not to be trifled with. I hope you know what you're doing. More humans. They must be after the icon. On your way, Arbiter. I'll deal with these beasts.
And the next next time they talk, the Arbiter is able to convince the Shipmaster that the Prophet's great journey is just a lie. I find the relation between the Arbiter and the Shipmaster quite interesting, but just the fact that the Arbiter went from being totally disrespected to make the Shipmaster go through a similar journey to find out that all he believed in and fought for was a lie. And it can't be said that the character in the game that represents the brutes had the same journey. I mentioned Tartarus and the Shipmaster under the same timestamp because they took so different paths and are both so crucial to the civil war that breaks out between the brutes and the elites. Tartarus is an interesting fella and a good villain. I truly hate him because he's so blind and can only see what he thinks is best for the brutes. Sometimes when I play Halo 2, I wonder if he even cares about the religion. It's clear that his hatred for the elites drives him, and he truly sees an opportunity when the Arbiter is being punished, and he truly enjoys to torture him, and he's really disappointed when the prophets ask him to leave Arbiter for them.
How much further must we heft this baggage? Any cell will do? Why not toss him in with this lot?
They could use the meat.
Them? What about us? My belly aches, and his flesh is seared just the way I like it.
Quiet! You two whimper like grunts fresh off the teat. He's not meant for the jails. The hierarchs have something special in mind. Noble prophets of truth and mercy, I have brought the incompetent.
You may leave, Tartarus,
But I thought...
and take your brutes with you.
Release the prisoner.
He isn't hard to hate, and that is what makes him a great villain for me, and probably the feelings the writers tried to provoke. Tartarus spends the whole game trying to win trust from the prophets. He probably loved the fact that a civil war began against the elites, because that's when he fully gained the prophet's trust as their right arm. That is also probably why he refuses to believe the Arbiter when he's confronted with the truth. He's obviously considering the fact that the Arbiter is right, but he isn't ready to let go of everything he fought for and actually achieved. He now has everything he wants. The brutes are the protectors of the prophets, and he is their right arm. No matter the fact that Tartarus is a piece of crap, we need to take this into consideration when we think about the fact that Tartarus is the one of him, Arbiter, and the Shipmaster who refuses to face the truth when he is confronted with it. The Arbiter and the Shipmaster had lost so much when they were faced with the truth. Tartarus had everything he wanted. That made it so much harder for him to face the fact that he was just a puppet that had been lied to. All he needed was that everything he had been told about the great journey were true. He was blind. Arbiter and the Shipmaster were not when they were confronted with the truth. That's why they could be saved and Tartarus had to die.
I know what you're thinking, and it's crazy.
So, stay here.
Unfortunately for us both, I like crazy. Just one question. What if you miss?
I won't.
If the Covenant is the faction that contributes with depth to the story, the UNSC cast of characters make sure that we get the best of both worlds and provide the kind of awesome and badass Halo story we all love. Master Chief is the silent protagonist that just lets you take in how big the Halo universe is. I feel like a badass super soldier when I play as the Master Chief, but I also feel like I'm kinda watching how everything progresses from the outside. The origin idea of the Master Chief is that you as the player should be able to feel like you are the Master Chief. He doesn't talk much because Bunny were careful with the fact that he shouldn't say anything that the player didn't feel. I don't want to start a debate if that's the ideal protagonist, but I do feel like nowadays some protagonists talk a bit too much during gameplay. I don't need every single thing on the screen to be described for me. I can actually process something myself. That was a sidetrack. However, in this case, the character arc of the Master Chief combined with the deep character arc of the Arbiter was just as fine as butter and jelly.
Me, inside your head, now.
Most of the unique personality traits in the UNSC cast comes from the characters around the Master Chief. We start with Cortana. She is the one who makes analysis and processes most of the information that comes up. That works pretty well. She is the one that does most of the talking, which means the Chief doesn't look like a complete idiot when he doesn't respond. The relationship with Chief and Cortana has developed between Combat Evolved and Halo 2. They seem to have been getting a lot closer as friends from the get-go, and she's actually a bit of a comical relief sometimes.
Mind the bump. Could we possibly make any more noise? I guess so.
It's at the end of the game I at least realized how much Chief and Cortana cares about each other. When Chief has to go after truth, meaning he would leave Cortana behind with the Gravemind. It's hard to talk about these characters individually because they complete each other so well, and Cortana, in my opinion, really makes up a lot of losses you get when you choose to have a mostly silent protagonist. It's an interesting relationship, an AI and a soldier that was meant for nothing else than to fight wars, and they seem to care about each other on a whole other level.
Where's the rest of your platoon?
Wasted, Sarge.
And we will be too, sir, if we don't get the hell out of here.
You hit Marine?
No, sir.
Then listen up! The Chief is gonna jump in this tank, roll across the bridge, and blow up any inhuman son of a bitch dumb enough to get between him and the Prophet of Regret. Pull yourself together, because you're going with it.
What about that scare?
We've all run the simulations. They're tough, but they ain't invincible. Stay with the Master Chief. He'll know what to do.
Yes, sir, Sergeant. Thanks for the tank. He never gets me anything.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
Let's talk about one of my favorite characters of all time in Halo, Sergeant Johnson. He's a comical relief that has been missed in Halo ever since he died in the third game. The second game is where I think Sergeant Johnson shines the most, and I could actually just play some clips that speak for themselves.
Go ahead, Cortana.
Another whisper, sir, near Io. We have probes en route.
I apologize, but we're going to have to make this quick.
You look nice.
Thank you.
The message just repeats. Regret. Regret. Regret.
Catchy. Any idea what it means?
Dear humanity, we regret being alien bastards. We regret coming to Earth. And we most definitely regret the Corps just blew up our raggedy-ass fleet. Hoorah! You hear me, Marines? We got trouble. How you doing?
Yeah, I really don't need to go on about him after showing that, but I will anyway, because I love this man. He has such badass moments that really made me think he was super cool as a kid. He also makes you laugh and is just such a breath of fresh air. I also like the scene in Halo 2 where he faces the Arbiter in the final mission. That's the first time in the game where the elites and the UNSC cooperate. A pretty big moment, you might say. I don't know what to add here really. Johnson's character arc is pretty simple, but it's well written and the timing of the jokes and one-liners doesn't feel unnatural, which is the risk when you're trying to write a character like Johnson. But no, Johnson just contributed so much to the OG trilogy with his badass moves and well-placed one-liners, a comical relief that's really missed in modern Halo.
Extract the chief and return to an amberclad.
Roger that. Status.
Sir, the Prophet is bugging out. Request permission to engage.
Negative, Commander. All Vector 2 heavies for Starside intercept.
Bam! Slip space rupture off the target's bow. It's going to jump inside the city.
There's no time, sir.
Green light to engage.
Punch it. Get us close.
Ma'am, without a destination solution...
We are not losing that ship.
There are two more characters in the UNSC that contribute a lot to the story, Lord Hood and Miranda Keyes, both important in their role at the UNSC and therefore also important in the advancement of the plot. We start off with Miranda Keyes. You gain sympathy for her from the get-go when she in the opening cutscene receives a medal in honor of her father who, as you know, passed away in Halo CE. Of these two characters, she is the most involved character in the story, and she actually has some badass moments.
I want all the information you've got on the first Halo. Schematic, topography, whatever. I don't care if I have the clearance or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Where's our target?
The enemy ship is stopped above the ring, ma'am. We're going to pass right over it.
Perfect. Sergeant, stay down!
She's very determined and therefore reminds me a bit of her father in some ways. I think her voice acting in Halo 2 is really great, and it's just overall a solid character. She isn't the most advanced character by any means, but she is what she needs to be, and fills her role just fine and adds to the story. That can be said about Lord Hood as well. I got my best impressions of Lord Hood in Halo 3. In Halo 2 he has quite a few dialogues in the beginning of the game, but after that he doesn't really show up until the cliffhanger. You get the best idea of what kind of character he is in Halo 2 in the opening cutscene when he talks with respect and honoring Master Chief, Sergeant Johnson and the recently passed Captain, Jacob Keyes. I at least get the feeling during that cutscene of him being an experienced war veteran that's thoughtful and also pretty wise. Nevertheless, characters like Miranda Keyes and Lord Hood, despite just being what they need to be, are important for the franchise. Characters like these two, the Marines and Johnson, makes you feel like the story isn't just centered around the Master Chief and his AI, but instead makes you feel like the game is trying to tell a military story, and that is something I really miss in Halo nowadays.
What is that?
I am a monument to all your sins.
There's one more faction we need to talk about, the Flood, and the character that is representing them in this game, the Gravemind. The Flood is a really important third faction in the OG trilogy. It adds horror elements to the story, an urgency, a sense of desperation, and also lore-wise it's the reason for the reproduction of the galaxy and also therefore the reason that all the characters now exist. However, the Gravemind added a lot to the Flood for me. The Flood was a real threatening enemy in combat evolved by all means. I mean, alien zombies that made some kind of ancient alien race design super weapons. That's bad. But the Gravemind showed the true horror of the Flood by showing how intelligent they are. When we are introduced to the Gravemind, he's this like mega ultra creepy creature that speaks like this wise old ancient thing. The Flood was still kind of a mystery in Halo 2, but now we know that they aren't just a galactic threat because of their combat powers, but they can actually analyze us and prepare every move. Just listen to its analysis of Master Chief and Arbiter.
Relax. I'd rather not piss this thing off.
Demon. This one is machine and nerve, and has its mind concluded. This one is but flesh and faith, and is the more deluded.
Kill me or release me, parasite. But do not waste my time with talk.
There is much talk, and I have listened through rock and metal and time. Now I shall talk, and you shall listen.
Hell, it even understands that the best thing it can do is to cooperate with the Master Chief and Arbiter. The Flood already said so much only by environmental storytelling in the previous game, but the Gravemind added another dimension of horror to the faction. Before we conclude, there are some other things I want to mention briefly. I now have tried to break down all the characters that at least I find the most important, and therefore also most of the quality of the writing. But Halo 2 does a great job, just as the whole trilogy, to tell stories in the missions as well, which is another thing I miss in modern Halo. Things like if you stand next to an NPC for a bit, it will say something very random.
Make me a sandwich!
I really like the build up to the first encounter with the Flood in Halo 2. And to play as the Master Chief in the middle of a civil war between the brutes and the elites was just awesome. In short, Halo 2 really has all the elements we all love about the classic Halo story, while also adding a completely new depth by showing more of the Covenant side and actually telling some really emotional and intriguing character development by letting the player play as the Arbiter. It tells an awesome military story and has elements of horror. It shows how a whole faction is starting to fall, with having to face both humans and Flood, while also having an ongoing civil war. This game really stands out in the Halo franchise for its writing, and arguably it stands out in the whole science fiction genre as well. I will never stop being amazed by the fact that Bungie managed to pull this off during the development hell that was Halo 2. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribe. What is your favorite science fiction story, and do you like or dislike the story of Halo 2? Let me know in the comments.